Hey guys, welcome back into Faith in Football. My name is Neil, and I am your host as always. Sorry we had a little technical issue again. Apparently, my internet went out and dropped my recording. So I have this is going to be part two. So you saw part one. You saw me talk about the starts of the week, and you know that we're talking about staying calm in the storm. Look, it's week three. I get it. You're nervous. You're anxious. You don't know who to trust, who not to trust. We're going to try to settle a few of those questions here with our sits of the week. We answered a few with our starts of the week. Just to recap for those who didn't see the starts of the week, which, if you want to, down the bottom, subscribe, like, and share. Go back and watch my part one. Okay. It's just labeled starts of the week. So, actually, I'm sorry. Thing calm in the storm. There we go. So, start of the week for quarterback Joey Flacco, Derek Carr, the Titan versus the Titans. Joe Flacco, of course, versus the Bengals. We've got Tony Pollard versus the Giants and Mark Ingram versus the Patriots. I'm sorry, the Panthers. Can't read my own handwriting. See, that's what happens with left-handed people. Sometimes we can't even read our own handwriting. So, wide receiver Drake London, who's just been on fire as of late and has a special connection, it seems, with Marcus Mariota, who, if you're looking for a streamer, you might want to look toward Mariota. He's hadn't been playing that badly, and if you're in a tough spot, you might want to pick him up and start. So, but only if you're in a tight spot. T. Higgins versus the Jets. We've got Evan Ingram versus the Chargers, and we've got Tyler Conklin versus Cincinnati. Now, as you know, I don't go over defenses or kickers for obvious reasons. If you're new to fantasy football, you'll know that kickers are kind of a hit and miss type thing. If you've got a kicker, here is my recommendation. Look at who is a stalled uh, offense. Guys like Tampa Bay with Ryan Suckup, which if you're playing in a league that has a kicker, he's probably already rostered in your league. Let me get on. I think I only played two leagues, and one of them is Dynasty, where we actually have a kicker. And remember, guys, if you haven't downloaded it yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't care if your app that you're playing your league in is a different platform other than Sleeper. Look, Sleeper gives you great updates, gives you great information, and before anybody else. Look, game day, anybody who uses Sleeper will testify to this. You will get updates before you get it from ESPN or the NFL mobile app. I've had notifications come through here before on Sleeper that I didn't get on ESPN or on the NFL mobile app until minutes later. And look, it might not sound like a lot, but if you've played fantasy football, you know that moments can mean the difference between you getting that special player off the waiver wire or not. And also, you being able to pivot from a player who's injured who you thought might be able to play, so you left him in, and then all of a sudden, he's not playing. Time is everything. Okay. So let's check out who is available for kickers on the waiver wire. And this is just in my league. Check your own league because it's going to be different. Um, like we got Matt Prater from kicker from Arizona as the number one listed free agent pickup. Nick Folk from New England. Um, Matt Amendola from Kansas City. Look, when you're looking kicker, you're looking, like I said, one of two things. You're either looking for a defense or an offense that stalls, or a high-powered offense that you can score a lot of points with. KC fits that mold, and then you've got guys like Graham Gano from the Giants, Greg Joseph from Minnesota. Let's see, Jason Saunders, big leg, huge leg down in Miami. Uh, Let's see. Boswell already played. Okay, here we go. Carlos Santos, kicker from Chicago. He is one who fits that mold of a sputtering offense that might not be able to punch it in to the end zone and just might have to settle for field goals. So somebody like that, somebody like Amendola from Kansas City, those could be targets for you off of your waiver wire. Make sure you check that. And here's the other thing: make sure you check the weather report. I know it sounds crazy that you got to think about all this stuff, but the weather report does play a huge factor in whether a kicker can perform well or not. So enough time on kickers. Let's move on. So at the end of the last episode before I was cut off, I was talking about Carson Wentz as a sit candidate after two top three finishes for weeks 1 and 2. And you might be thinking, Neil, you're crazy. There's no way I'm sitting Carson Wentz. Look, here's the thing. You didn't draft Carson Wentz to be your starter. You drafted him to be your backup. You've probably been hesitant about starting him because you thought that week 1 was a fluke, so you missed out on week 2. Now you're scared you're going to miss out on week 3. But they're facing Philly. Not a good start. It's just not. Wentz could fall back to earth. Now listen, if you want to roll the dice and go for it, be my guest. I'm guessing that your starting quarterback probably has a better matchup than Carson Wentz does. If he doesn't, sure, go ahead and start him. But make sure you take a real close look. If you need some help, down at the bottom, comment, ask me the question, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I know tomorrow is Sunday, and I'm recording this a little late, so I apologize for that. But I'm still available. So number 2, Tua versus Buffalo, and I know everyone is right now. You're just screaming at me, going, "Are you crazy? He threw 6 touchdown passes and almost 400 yards." Listen, that's not Tua's ceiling. That's not what he does. That was an outlier game. Okay, they were down. They needed to come back, and now they're playing Buffalo. Now I get it. Buffalo just lost one of its safeties, but that line, I'm not trusting this one. Okay. Buffalo's got a much better defense. As a matter of fact, the number 2 ranked defense in fantasy over the 7th best defense in Baltimore, which they faced last week, which allowed them to put up all those points. So don't look for, it's called chasing the performance. Don't chase this one with Buffalo. Okay. Again, same thing as Wentz. You did not draft Tua to be your starter. You probably drafted him to be your backup. Most of the people that I've seen have guys like Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts as their starter. And I'm not saying that Russ is a slam dunk start of the week. He scares the hell out of me, and I hate that the fact that I talked him up as much as I did preseason. But it is what it is, guys. So another candidate to watch for start of the week, and this is purely on health, not performance, and that's Justin Herbert. We saw in the last game that he was dealing with rib issues. He's got damage to his rib cartilage. So at best, he's going in at half speed. So he's not 100% healthy, and you're going to run the risk of the fact that he might not finish the game. One good hit, I don't care how much padding they put on this guy, he's going out of the game. Imagine starting him, getting halfway through the second quarter, and bam, here comes Chase Daniels. Could happen, and probably will. So keep an eye on that. Look at his health, and I get it. He looked awesome out there dealing with that. He looked like a superhero out there slinging the ball around after he apparently couldn't run for 2 yards for a first down. Then he leads them back. So I get it. You're emotional. It's an emotional game, but let logic dictate, and please use caution when starting Justin Herbert. You probably got a decent backup. Maybe you got Tua. I would definitely go with Tua over Justin Herbert this week. Maybe moving forward, depending upon how severe this injury really is. So, running back, Antonio Gibson versus Philly. This is another Philly matchup I do not like. Look, Dalvin Cook got shut down. Now, whether it was from scheme or usage or what have you, and I know what you're thinking. Some of these picks, you think there's liquor in here. There's not. Trust me, not a big drinker. So it's actually off, pardon me, off-brand Crystal Light. Also, don't adjust the tint in your screen. I was outside today and got really got a whole lot of sun. So anyway, down here in Louisiana, it is hot. Just saying. So Antonio Gibson versus Philly and Dalvin. Look what they did against Dalvin Cook. They shut him down. It was not a pretty picture for Philly or for Minnesota last week against Philly. I don't see being pretty picture for the run game with Antonio Gibson. Okay. Next guy, Damon Harris versus Baltimore. Look, Baltimore's got a really good run defense. They shut Miami out last week. That's why they had to throw the ball so much, because they couldn't run the ball. So with all those running backs in the backfield for Miami, you would think that one of them could pop off. No dice. I don't see Damon Harris doing it for you against Baltimore, especially when that defense just got embarrassed by the way that they allowed Tua and the Dolphins to come back last week. Now, a couple guys that I do want to mention that you keep an eye on is CMC dealing with an ankle issue again. So keep an eye on CMC's health. Also, Josh Jacobs, even though he is traveling with the team to Tennessee to take on the Titans, please take it with a grain of salt. And look, I would definitely keep an eye on this, because he's got an illness, and when you're dealing with illness, it's a little different than dealing with injury. Injury can be cut and dry. You can get a diagnosis. It's a lot better. He could wake up game day and be perfectly fine, or he could relapse in this illness and be out in the team hotel watching the game rather than being on the sidelines, or at least being on the playing field. Okay. So keep an eye on Josh Jacobs' health. Keep an eye on CMC before you make your final decisions to start this week. Okay. Next guy up at wide receiver, we're looking at Michael Thomas versus Carolina. Look, Winston's back, and this is more of a knock on Winston than it is on Michael Thomas. I liked what I saw out of Michael Thomas last week. Got involved, scored. Great. Is he going to be the Michael Thomas of old? Of course not. Look, Drew Brees ain't walking through that door. There is no way I'm going to sit here and say that Winston is Drew Brees. But with Winston having back issues, I'm telling you right now, it's the same thing as Justin Herbert. You want to proceed with caution. I don't see Michael Thomas having a connection with Taysom Hill, if that is, Andy Dalton, if that in fact is the route that they have to take. So while Michael Thomas might not be a total dud, it's definitely possible that Winston could play through the game. He could play through the pain. They could doctor him up, fine. And then halfway through, they switch out. But the damage might already be done. You never know. Plus the fact that you got a pretty good rookie on the other side, not to mention Jarvis Landry. So there's a lot of targets for Dalton to throw to, and we haven't seen enough of Dalton on the field to determine what his tendencies are. So keep an eye out on that. Monitor Winston's health and what they're saying. Remember, the positive stuff you need to take with a grain of salt. It's when they start talking negative that you really need to, sit up and pay attention. Let's see. Trying to get an update on Jerry Jeudy here. So Jeudy and Hamler are questionable for week 3. And they are playing San Francisco. Listen, guys, the way that Buffalo or the way that Denver is right now, I'm thinking it's Courtland Sutton and nobody else. The only other part that I want to this Denver offense is Javonte Williams. Okay. I want Williams. If I'm in a pinch, I'll take Gordon. I don't want anything to do with Russell Wilson until I see some improvement, but I will take his number one offensive weapon in the passing game, which is Courtland Sutton. Thankfully, I have Courtland Sutton in multiple leagues, so there was no way I was touching Jerry Jeudy. I'm just not convinced. Okay, he's yet to prove it on the NFL field that he is worthy of the draft pick, the draft capital that they spent on him. So until I see something, I'm hands off. Now, if you can get a really good game out of Jerry Jeudy, definitely go flip him to somebody who's hurting for wide receiver help. Okay. Remember, guys, down the bottom, when you subscribe, like, and share, hit me up in the comments section if you have a question about trades, about free agent acquisitions, about the waiver wire, who to pick up, who not to, who to lay off. There's going to be those darlings of the week that just have absolutely phenomenal weeks and make you want to go, I want some of that. Okay. So now next, we're talking tight ends. We're talking George Kittle is dealing with a groin injury. He is questionable against the Broncos. Look, again, I'm not touching George Kittle. He is one play away from being out and on the sideline. He's not going to help your team out there. So proceed with caution and make sure that you have a fallback plan. If you've got gone on your waiver wires, there's some where Gerald Everett is still available on the waiver wire. Matter of fact, let me pull this up real quick. So top choices, we have Jalen Hurts, who's actually questionable, so maybe lay off of him. Juwan Johnson with New Orleans, not a bad one, but Austin Hooper, very interesting with Tennessee. Going up against Vegas, they don't do very well against the tight end. Also, Hunter Henry against Baltimore also doesn't do too well. And that's about all I'm seeing, guys. So again, tight ends, unless you paid up and got one of the top guys, there's really only three guys. Andrews, Kelsey, and let me see, and Waller. That's week 3 stats. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you were lucky to get Pat Fryermuth, great. Also, I know that right now, David Njoku might already be off your waiver wire, but he's definitely worth a look. Make sure you check it out and see who's still available. Okay. Only one I'm seeing right now is OJ Howard, and I would not chase that 2-touchdown performance. That's just me. Next up, sit of the second sit of the week at tight end, Zach Ertz going against the Rams. Look, I don't like Zach Ertz. He couldn't fend off Dallas Goedert in Philly. It's hit and miss with him at best. So going up against the Rams defense, I would definitely proceed with caution on that one. Now, 2 waiver wire pickups that I do want to speak about real quick before we go. And one other thing I do want to speak about before I sign off is if you guys are looking for a fun, innovative podcast to listen to, that's great on the drive into work. It's great to listen to with your significant other, husband, wife, whoever. It's a great conversation starter. It's the Victory Couch with Rick and Julie Rando. You can find them on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. I love this podcast. It's Julie and Rick have been married for almost 20 years. They're good friends, and they have a really good connection, and you can just hear that come through in the podcast. They pose questions to one another that are great conversation starters for your significant other. You want to keep it fresh, you want to keep it spicy, you want to keep learning about each other when you're with someone, and this podcast right here can help facilitate some of that. So tune in to the Victory Couch with Rick and Julie Rando. I highly recommend it. It has done wonders for the missus and me. So, my wife Amanda and I listen to it, and we are honestly better people for it. So, but waiver wire pickup that you want to target. If you guys saw the Thursday night game between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, you guys saw a, I don't want to say a hobbled, but a humbled Najee Harris. And earlier in the season, all preseason, I was preaching lay off of Najee. I did not like the fact that all of his production last year was the fact that Big Ben had a noodle arm at the end of his career. So I'm being proven right week in and week out. Najee is not that productive when it comes to yards per rush. He was one of the lowest in the league last year. The only thing that saved his fantasy value was the fact that he was highly involved in the passing game because Big Ben is a statue, can't move, and his arm was shot. Mitch Trubisky does not have that problem. Okay. Kenny Pickett, when he gets in there, will not have that problem. So unless they start scheming for Najee, lay off. But the one guy that you did see kind of pop off and for me, pop into notoriety was rookie Jalen Mason. That's right. Jalen Mason, rookie running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's probably on your waiver wire in a lot of home leagues and a lot of redraft. Go check him out. If you've got waiver wires that have already passed, this guy's a free agent. Go pick him up. There's probably somebody that you're holding. If you're holding another defense, drop it. If you're holding another kicker, drop it. If you're holding two tight ends, drop them. Go pick up and build depth at running back, because I'm telling you right now, Jalen Mason is one play away from being the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we all know that a Pittsburgh Steelers running back is definitely a workhorse. Mike Tomlin loves one running back. But when you're not performing like Najee Harris is, things change, and they can change quick. So keep an eye on the waiver wire and look for Jalen Mason. Next guy to listen to, we're going way other end of the spectrum on this guy. He's been around quite a bit. I thought that he was out altogether, but the new wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cole Beasley, is back on the field and teamed up with Tom Brady. I mean, y'all know how much Tom Brady loves his veteran receivers. And with Evans serving the suspension, Godwin's questionable, you don't know how this wide receiver room is going to shake out. So they signed Cole Beasley. They brought him in. Sign him, sit him on your bench, and keep an eye out for last minute changes that you might have to make on your wide receiving core. So, couple waiver wire tips for you guys. The sits of the week on this episode. And remember, stay calm, stay active in the trading. Remember, there's always somebody out there panicking more than you are. And the real winner in fantasy football is going to be the guy or girl who keeps their head about them when everything else is just chaos around you. Remember Peter walking on the water? Yeah, he got distracted. Don't get distracted. Stay focused on God, on your lineup, and just in life in general. Guys, thank you much for your time. I appreciate it. My name's Neil. I'm the host of Faith and Football, and I hope to see you next time. Remember, subscribe, like, and share for me. And remember, football is good, but God is greater. We'll see you guys next time on Faith and Football.